Okay, so we are going to start the chapter Ionic Bonding in today's class, and this is almost similar to the structure of ions that we were talking about in the last chapter, which is atomic structure. Now, this is ionic bonding, right? This is one of the type of bonding which is present between the compounds, right, or in the compounds or inside the compounds, right? You can say that the bonding by which compounds are going to be formed, right? जिसकी वजह से compound आपके पास बन रहे हैं. This is one of the basic bonding between the elements, right? And over here, different compounds are going to be formed, right? And you just need to keep remember this bonding is always between metal and non-metal. So the very first thing that you need to keep remember is this is actually bonding. This is actually bonding between metal and non-metal. This is actually bonding between metal and non-metal. So this is one of the first definition for ionic bonding. You need to keep remember this, because it is important for you to identify the compounds among various compounds. For suppose I just give you a skill test over here. For suppose there is a skill test for you. I just want you guys to identify which one is ionic compound. Which one is ionic compound? For suppose if I just ask you to identify ionic compound among these molecules, for suppose you have ammonia, you have carbon dioxide, for suppose you have sulfur dioxide, for suppose you have water, for suppose you have magnesium oxide, and I ask you which one out of these 5 compounds is ionic compound. So which one of them, right बच्चों, कौन से वाला हो सकता है इसमें से ionic compound?
Magnesium oxide.
Yes, the magnesium oxide would be the ionic compound. So bachcho, this is actually for you to identify the ionic compounds among several compounds, right? So this definition, the first definition of ionic compound is for you to identify the ionic compound among the various compounds. अगर आप बहुत सारे कंपाउंड्स में से आयोनिक कंपाउंड को आइडेंटिफाई कर सकते हो, दैट मींस अगर एग्जाम में वो आपसे बोले राइट डाउन एनी 2 फिजिकल प्रॉपर्टीज ऑफ कैल्शियम ऑक्साइड, या वो आपसे बोले राइट डाउन एनी 2 फिजिकल प्रॉपर्टीज ऑफ स्ट्रोंशियम क्लोराइड, या आपसे अगर वो बोले राइट डाउन एनी 2 फिजिकल प्रॉपर्टीज ऑफ सोडियम क्लोराइड, तो आपको पता होगा यार आयोनिक कंपाउंड है और जो फिजिकल प्रॉपर्टीज आयोनिक कंपाउंड की होती हैं उन्हीं में से कोई दो लिखनी है, ठीक है ना? तो दीज आर द थिंग्स फॉर यू व्हिच आर वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, क्योंकि अगर आप आइडेंटिफाई नहीं कर पाओगे तो इसका मतलब यह है कि कोई फायदा नहीं है इतना सब कुछ पढ़ने का ना, तो फिर वो एग्जाम में आप गलत लिख के आ जाओगे, राइट? सो द वेरी फर्स्ट डेफिनेशन बाय व्हिच यू कैन ओनली आइडेंटिफाई कि कंपाउंड आयोनिक है या नहीं, सो दिस इज द फर्स्ट डेफिनेशन जिससे आप आइडेंटिफाई कर सकते हो कि कंपाउंड आयोनिक है, ठीक है ना? बस इतना काफी है डेफिनेशन. अगर एग्जामिनर आपसे पूछे एग्जाम में डिफाइन आयोनिक कंपाउंड्स, यू आर नॉट गोइंग टू अलाउ टू राइट दिस डेफिनेशन इन द पेपर. This is not the valid definition, right? So you are not going to support, you are not supposed to write this definition in the exam, but this definition is very important for you to identify the ionic compounds, right? Then we have second definition, which is very important. You can see this, that if you talk about metals and non-metals, if you talk about metals and non-metals, so metals generally present in group 1, group 2, and group 3 of the periodic table. You will find sodium, potassium, rubidium, cesium, lithium. In group 1, you will find magnesium, calcium, barium, radium, strontium. In group number 2, you will find aluminum. In group number 3, and you have transition metals as well. We know that in group number 1, they have 1 electron in the outermost shell. Group 2 have 2 electrons in the outermost shell. Group 3 have 3 electrons in the outermost shell. When they have 1 electron, they will lose that electron to become +1 charge. When they have 2 electrons, they will lose 2 electrons to become +2 charge. When they have 3 electrons, so they will lose 3 electrons to become 3+ charge. These are the charges of metals. Metals are always from positive charges, right? Same as it is generally in non-metals are found in group number 5, group number 6, and group number 7. Just like if you talk about nitrogen and phosphorus, like you talk about oxygen and sulfur and selenium, like you talk about fluorine, chlorine, bromine, and iodine. These are actually non-metals. Generally, we talk about these non-metals. So If you talk about group 5 elements, they have 5 electrons in the outermost shell. Group 6 elements have 6 electrons. Group 7 having 7 electrons. So they require 3 electrons to complete their octet. So they will be -3 when they are in ions form, and they are always -2. They are always -1. So these are actually, this is fixed for metals and non-metals, right? Metal always lost their electron, right? You will always find loss of electrons by metals, and there is always a gain of electron you will find on non-metal. So this is journal definition for ionic compound. This is actually the bond which is formed by the transference of electrons. You need to remember this word. It's very important. You need to keep remember the bond which is formed. You can say that bond which is formed by complete transference of electron. You need electron. Just keep remember, bacho, this is what's transference of electron. This is complete transference of electron. So bond which is formed by the complete transference of electron from metal to non-metal, from metal to non-metal. So you need to keep remember this, बच्चों, कि हमेशा 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 ionic bonding में complete transference होगी electrons की. इलेक्ट्रॉन हमेशा 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 मेटल दे देगा, इलेक्ट्रॉन हमेशा हमेशा नॉन मेटल ले लेगा. दिस इज द कंप्लीट ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन. यू विल फाइंड द इलेक्ट्रॉन ऑफ मेटल इन नॉन मेटल आफ्टर द बॉन्डिंग, राइट? यहाँ बीच में नहीं है, इलेक्ट्रॉन दे दिया गया. You can only use the word donate, you can only use the word loss, you can only use the word transfer. You're not supposed to use the word share over here. You need to keep remember this. Is that clear, every one of you?
Yes.
So remember this what I am saying again. Never ever use the word share in this. Never ever use the word share in this, because MCQs में वो share का लफ्ज देगा और आप सब लगाओगे उस पर निशान, मुझे पता है, ठीक है ना? तो इसीलिए मैं दोबारा कह रहा हूँ, never ever use the word share for ionic bonding. In the ionic bonding, there is always complete transference or the loss or the transformation or the donation of electron from metal to non-metal. There is complete transference. There is no sharing between metal and non-metal. There is complete transference, right? So this is actually, you need to understand that when you have, for suppose sodium, so sodium have 11 electrons, 11 protons and 12 neutrons, while fluorine has 9 protons and 9 electrons. So if you talk about the structure, the first shell, second shell, third shell, this is the first shell, second shell. So over here you can see this. In the sodium we have 2 electrons in the first shell, then 8 electrons in the second shell, and then 1 electron in the third shell. Then in fluorine, you know about this, 2 electrons in the first shell and then 7 electrons in the second shell. You can see this, it requires 1 electron. It needs to lose 1 electron, right? So this electron, when transferred from its last shell to the last shell to fluorine, it will be a bond which is forming between these 2 atoms, which is known as ionic bonding, right? So what happened when they just lose their electrons? We know that when sodium loses electrons, the first shell will remain same, the second shell remain same, but by the loss of electron, sodium become +1 charge. Is that right, bacho, or not? We know this now.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
sodium will be +1. Then, bacho, we know that fluorine has 2 electrons in the first shell and 7 electrons in the second shell. And when they receive decay, you need to show there's 2 electrons in the first shell, 7 electrons of fluorine in the second shell, and this is the 1 received electron, so it should be dot, right? And due to the receival of 1 electron, it becomes -1 charge, right or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
इसका मतलब है when this is positive and negative, so they start attracting each other. When positive, negative attract each other, there will be a compound which is NAF. This is ionic compound.
कोई
This is-
बगैर अच्छे से
क्या कह रहे हो बेटे? क्या कह रहे हो?
सॉरी सर.
Now one more thing, the best definition over here is this. You can say that this is actually electrostatic force of attraction. Keep remember, whenever you talk about the force of attraction between positive or negative, it will be electrostatic force of attraction between opposite charges. So you can say that electrostatic force of attraction. You can use the word electrostatic force of attraction between opposite ions. Between opposite ions. So this is the best definition that you can write in the exam if examiner asks what is ionic bonding. So you can say that, sir, it is actually electrostatic force of attraction between opposite ions. So this is the best definition for ionic bonding, right? So this is ionic bonding in front of you. We have three different definitions, but all are important on their sides. Like if you talk about the first definition, bonding between metal and non-metal, it is important because it is important for you to identify the ionic compound. Then second definition is very important for MCQs, is you need to know there is no word of sharing over here we need to use. We just need to use transference and donating or lose of electron like this. We can only use these type of words over here. And then the last definition is a perfect one that you need to keep remember if someone asks you why NaCl have a high melting point. So you can say that NaCl is ionic compound. It has strong electrostatic force of attraction between the ions. That is why it has high melting point, right? So you can use this definition while you are answering the questions in exam. Is that clear, every one of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
so you can write all these things in your copy, and now there is a skill test for you. I just want कि आप मुझे बना के दिखाएं the same thing for magnesium and oxygen, right? Just do it quick, bacho, and send me the answer so I can check you are getting the things or not. Again, so let's talk about the structure over here. If you talk about magnesium oxide that you already draw over here, so आप में से जिसने भेज दिया है, that's very good. जिसने नहीं भेजा है, you can just watch over here. If you talk about magnesium, so magnesium has 2 electrons in the outermost shell. So that 2 electron will be lost by magnesium, and you will have 8 electrons in the second last shell and the 2 electrons in the first shell, and magnesium become 2+. And if you talk about oxygen, so you can see this, oxygen has 6 electrons in the outermost shell. So the structure will be like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the inner shell has 2 electrons. So when it receives 2 electrons, so it will be 2- because it will receive 2 electrons from magnesium like this. So you need to be aware about this. The 2 received electrons should be shown over there separately, right, everyone? So it will be magnesium 2+ attracting oxygen 2-. So the charges are opposite and the numbers are same. So the formula will be magnesium oxide. Is that clear, every one of you?
Yes, sir.
Then I just want
Yes, sir.
बच्चों आप बनाओ किसका aluminum और nitrogen का. If you talk about aluminum and nitrogen, so we have actually 13 electrons in aluminum and 7 electrons in nitrogen. So it will be like that aluminum has 2 electrons, 8 electrons, and 3 electrons. So definitely electron which are in the last shell of aluminum should be lost by the aluminum to become 3+. So aluminum will be 3+ while losing 3 electrons from the outermost shell. So it will be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 3 electrons are lost by aluminum and it becomes 3+. And if you talk about nitrogen, so definitely nitrogen has 5 electrons in the outermost shell and 2 electrons in the first shell. So it will be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, right? So it will receive 3 electrons separately, 1 electron over here first, then over here first, then over here first, and it will become 3-. So you can see this, that aluminum is 3+ and nitrogen is actually 3-. So the numbers are same and the charges are opposite. So when they are going to form a formula, so it will be aluminum nitride. Is that clear, every one of you?
Yes, sir.
I have sent you my work. Can you please check?
Yes, Ali and Madi, right? So
Yes, sir.
so Madi, just look at over here. Magnesium has 2 electrons in the outermost shell and oxygen has 6 electrons in the outermost shell now. So magnesium will lose 2 electrons to become magnesium 2+, and oxygen will receive 2 electrons to become 2-. That's right. That's absolutely right. And if you talk about Ali, here's 2 plus and 2 minus is right. Okay, fine. So let's talk about something different example. Just look at over here, Bacho. If you talk about calcium and fluorine, so the calcium is having 20 proton number and fluorine is having 9 proton number. So the electronic configuration will be 2, 8, 2. And over here it's only 2, 7. Right. So you can see this calcium have 18 electrons in the first 3 shell. It must lose 2 electrons to become 2 plus. Right. So you need to keep remember calcium need to lose 2 electrons. This is must. ऐसा नहीं हो सकता कि calcium 1 electron lose करे और stable हो जाए. ऐसा नहीं हो सकता. If calcium wants to be stable, so it must need to lose 2 electrons. So calcium decided to do this, right? So first shell, second shell, and third shell, and calcium lose both of its 2 electrons. So 2 electrons in the first shell, 8 electrons in the second shell, and the 8 electrons in the third shell. And the last shell, 2 electrons will be lost by calcium and it become calcium 2 plus. Now the problem is this with fluorine, that you can see over here that fluorine is actually having 7 electrons in the outermost shell, 2 electrons in the first shell, 7 electrons in the second shell. So you can see this, that fluorine only needs 1 electron. So definitely fluorine will receive 1 electron and become -1. It is not possible that if calcium is losing 2 electrons, so both electrons are going to be received by fluorine. This is not possible because fluorine wants only 1 electron, right? So if element want 1 electron, so definitely it will receive 1 electron, right? So over here fluorine just required 1 electron, so fluorine ने एक ही receive किया. अब आप बोलेंगे सर कैल्शियम के पास 2 इलेक्ट्रॉन थे, ठीक है, उसने दोनों इलेक्ट्रॉन लूज कर दिया, ठीक है, वो +2 हो गया, ठीक है, यहाँ तक सही था. फ्लोरीन को 7 इलेक्ट्रॉन है, ठीक है, उसने एक रिसीव किया, ठीक है, वो स्टेबल हो गया, ठीक है, बट वेयर इज द सेकंड इलेक्ट्रॉन? वो कहाँ गया? दूसरा वाला इलेक्ट्रॉन जो कि कैल्शियम ने लूज किया था, वो क्या हवा में घूम रहा है? ऐसा नहीं हो सकता. उसके लिए आपको याद रखना है, we should have 2 fluorine atoms. We should have 2 fluorine atom, and over here you can see this, we have 1 more fluorine atom जिसके पास भी एक इलेक्ट्रॉन की कमी है, and this electron, the second electron of calcium, will be received by this fluorine. So if you want कि calcium fluorine के साथ bond बनाए, so you need to keep remember कि fluorine को सिर्फ एक ही इलेक्ट्रॉन चाहिए, जबकि कैल्शियम को 2 इलेक्ट्रॉन लूज करने हैं. तो कैल्शियम तो अपने 2 इलेक्ट्रॉन लूज करेगा, लेकिन उसके लिए फ्लोरीन आपके पास 2 होने चाहिए ताकि 2 फ्लोरीन एक इलेक्ट्रॉन कैल्शियम से ले सकें और आपके पास बन सके क्या? कैल्शियम फ्लोराइड. Is that clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
You need to remember, if you draw the formula of this, you know that calcium is 2 plus and fluorine is 1 minus. So the cross, we need to multiply the numbers because the numbers are different. So the formula will be calcium fluoride. So this is fact. Whenever calcium form bond with fluorine, so it is always calcium needs to lose 2 electrons and fluorine is 2 fluorines should be there to receive each electron over there. So you can write this statement over here as well. You can say that 2 electrons, you can say that 2 electrons are lost by calcium. 2 electrons are lost by calcium, and each fluorine would receive 1 electron on. Is that clear, every one of you?
Yes, sir.
Any problem?
No, sir.
No problem, sir.
Yes, can you do one example if I want?
Yes, sir.
Sure. Okay, so skill task number 2 for today's class is that I just want कि आप लोग मुझे सोडियम और ऑक्सीजन के दरमियान कंपाउंड बना के दिखाएं, and also between ammonium and sulfur. Just do it quickly. I just want कि आप इनके दरमियान कंपाउंड मुझे बना के दिखाएं. I am waiting for your answers. Start. If you talk about the next thing, but so you need to keep remember that the structure of ionic compounds are always giant ionic lattice, and the bonding, you can say that the bonding over there or the structure over there and bonding over there is like this is always giant ionic lattice. The structure is always giant ionic lattice, while the bonding is, you can say that there will be strong electrostatic force of attraction. Strong electrostatic force of attraction, right? Strong electrostatic force of attraction, and this is actually between the ions. You need to keep remember this is between the ions, right? Strong electrostatic force of attraction between the ions. So if you talk about the structure, so the structure will be like this. For suppose you have a crystal lattice over here for ionic compounds. So this is always like this. This is a giant ionic lattice all the time. You need to keep remember if for suppose this corner is showing what? Sodium. This corner is showing you what? Sodium ion. So you need to keep remember along this everywhere you will find chloride ions, right? On 6 sides you will find chloride ions. You will find chloride ion over here, you will find chloride ion over here, you will find chloride ion over here. 3 sides हो गई और इसके बराबर में यहाँ एक और साइड होगी, यहाँ एक और साइड होगी, यहाँ एक और साइड होगी. इन तीनों sides पर भी you will find chloride. You can see this, a single positive sodium ion is actually attracted by 6 negative chloride ions. And same as for chloride as well. If you focus over here, you will find positive over here, you will find positive over here, you can find positive over here. You can see this, you will find positive over here and you will find negative over here, right? Is that clear? But so if you
Yes,
see
sir.
over here, over here, over here, in all these sides, you will find positive ions. So after every negative, we have 6 positive. After every negative, we have 6 positive, and with every positive, we have 6 negative and 6 negative, 6 positive again negative, right? So एक positive के साथ 6 negative और 6 negative के साथ फिर 36 positive, फिर 36 positive के साथ वो 216 negative. तो आप सोच सकते हैं कि कितना giant ionic structure ये होने वाला है. That is why they have high melting and boiling point. So we have few physical properties of ionic compounds that you need to keep remember. They can ask for any compound for this. आप देखें कोई सा भी ionic compound वो आपको दे सकता है और उसके पूछेगा वो आपसे any 2 physical properties. So you can write any 2 physical properties out of these. Ionic compounds are solid at room temperature and pressure most of the time. They have high melting point and boiling point. They are soluble in water, and they can conduct electricity in aqueous and molten state. They are electricity conductor in molten and aqueous state, but not in solid state. You need to keep remember why they conduct electricity in aqueous and molten state, because they have free ions. Because they have free ions. Because they have free ions. You need to keep remember this answer as well for 1 mark. In the molten and aqueous state, they have free ions, while in the solid state, they don't have. That is why they are able to conduct electricity in molten and aqueous states. And they are well soluble in water. They have high densities and high melting point and high boiling point. They are
Sir?
solid and room temperature. These are 4 physical properties that you need to keep remember. जी बेटे.
What is a molten state?
Molten state, for suppose आपके पास कोई ionic compound था, आपने उसको मेल्ट कर दिया और मेल्ट करने के बाद वो लिक्विड फॉर्म में आ गया. ठीक है?
Okay, sir. Thank you.
और aqueous मीन आपने उसको पानी में डिसॉल्व कर दिया. ठीक है? तो बच्चों देखो,
Yes, sir.
अगर आपसे वो पूछे राइट डाउन एनी 2 फिजिकल प्रॉपर्टीज ऑफ कैल्शियम ऑक्साइड, तो आपको याद रखना है अगर आप उससे पूछे वो कैल्शियम क्लोराइड, अगर वो आपसे पूछे पोटेशियम क्लोराइड, अगर वो आपसे पूछे सोडियम क्लोराइड, या आपसे कोई भी आयोनिक कंपाउंड के बारे में पूछे, तो आपने याद रखना है कि इन चारों में से कोई सी भी 2 फिजिकल प्रॉपर्टीज आप लिख सकते हैं. तो पहले तो आप आइडेंटिफाई करेंगे आयोनिक कंपाउंड है या नहीं. अगर आयोनिक कंपाउंड है तो आप कोई सी भी 2 फिजिकल प्रॉपर्टीज लिख सकते हैं. Am I clear, everyone of you?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.